Hi, thank you for joining us.
Hi.
You are the author of Panorama City,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that you will talk about that for a while, how it came to be, what it's about, how it was written.
Well, first of all, it's a novel, and it's about a 28-year-old guy named Oppen Porter who's was living in a small town in Central California called Madera, which is near Fresno. And he was living sort of on the outskirts of Madera with his father. And when his father dies, he buries his father in the yard per his father's wishes, and sets into motion a series of events that results in him having to come down and live with his aunt in Panorama City, which is in the valley here,
Right.
near Van Nuys adjacent. And he is 6'6", very naive and open, tends to sort of believe anything anybody tells him until his experience proves otherwise. And he's functionally illiterate, but pretty smart and able to. He's got the gift of gab, so he's.
Perfect for Los Angeles.
Right, yeah, and he's sort of telling his story of the 40 days that he ends up staying with his Aunt Liz before things become impossible and he goes back to Madera. And she perceives him as somebody who needs to be mainstreamed and looked after. She sees him as a little bit maybe mentally disabled or a little bit off. She wants to protect him from the world with her programs. And so it's like a Southern California Candide, maybe, would be the...
Nice.
Or Gilead meets The Jerk.
Wow.
Would be another way to do it, because the whole...
Catchy.
Right, yeah, I know, right. For fans of both. The Venn diagram looks like two circles separated in space, orbiting each other. The sort of narrative structure of it is he's been hit by a truck in Madera after all of this has happened. He's in the hospital and he's recording this story onto cassette tapes for the benefit of his unborn son, to try to give his son sort of what he might need to know to be a man of the world.
All right, I have to ask this, Panorama City.
Yeah.
Honestly, why Panorama City? It is not a part of Los Angeles that usually comes to mind.
I'm mainly interested in writing about Los Angeles because I live here.
Right.
And I grew up here from junior high on. So it's my place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily interested in engaging the history of how Los Angeles has been written about as much as some other people. So one of the things I was trying to do with this book, and one of the reasons that I sort of was interested in a very naive character, is, my sort of literary forebears was, this was inspired by reading Don Quixote and thinking, oh, how could I do a Sancho Panza tells the Don Quixote story in contemporary times? The whole thing became more of a Candide thing later. But these are the crutches. You need the crutches.
Okay.
They get you so far. You say, oh, I don't need the crutches anymore. You cast them aside while you're working, and then you pick up another set of crutches because you can't. You know what I mean?
You can't go on without them.
You can't go on without them, or
okay.
you think you can until you're done. So I'm getting to Panorama City here because essentially what I came up with Oppen was I wanted somebody who was not cynical and couldn't read. My experience of LA, I feel like I'm constantly having to cut through certain layers of reflexive cynicism and snap judgments. And then I feel like we're also, in contemporary life, bombarded with so much advertising and text all the time that I was curious to see what would happen if I stripped some of these things away, went back to a childlike person and set them out in LA. So then I also wanted a piece of LA that hadn't really been covered.
You found one.
Yeah. And Panorama City, I mean, it's a place a lot of people in LA just don't even necessarily know exists. It's a nicer sounding title than Van Nuys. I suppose it could have been called Van Nuys, but Panorama City is even sort of more down at heel. It's more, it went through way different, more extreme demographic changes And I really like the idea that Aunt Liz, who had lived there from the 50s, is sort of stubbornly still staying there. And her deal is, the good people are coming back. And Oppen's take on it is that these people are good, She's this sort of stubborn, not an active racist, but she's, her neighborhood has gone down the tubes as far as she's concerned, but she's not going anywhere.
Lots of that going on in Los Angeles.
Right.
Yes. So you've been on tour with this book.
Yeah.
What was the strangest thing that has happened on your book tour?
I have no exciting book tour stories, which is...
No bad behavior on your part?
No.
Oh,
I'm
too
boring.
bad.
No, I'll tell you, because I have thought about this. I've been asked this question before, and I've thought about it, and I'm like, I want to have that anecdote of that crazy person who went, whatever. But my experience of book tour this time around has mainly been getting to meet a lot of really great readers and a lot of great fellow writers that I didn't know before. And it's just been like, it's like Pollyanna City. I mean,
well. Let's not talk about that
anymore.
There's
No darkness.
I'm sorry. That's
just
very disappointing.
Cut it out. Nobody's going to want to hear it.
You're in Angelino. Let's talk about that for a minute in terms of where you find inspiration. Is there something about the physicalness of this place, landmarks, places you like to go to be inspired, places you like to go to read?
I would say that, I'm inspired by everyday life, by walking around and driving around, looking at people, interacting. So in that sense, it's more coincidence than anything that it's Los Angeles that I write about. That said, I love the horizon line of the ocean.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I'm a surfer, so I experience it a lot. And when I was I lived in the Midwest for a few years for grad school and fellowship, and I realized I lived in a farmhouse one year, and it was soothing to see a horizon line in the fields there too. So that's really important to me. Feeling like everything's sort of pushed to an edge, and then beyond it's, and then places to be inspired. It's boring. I'm like a boring. It's like watching me write is really boring because I like things with no windows. This is probably like every writer says this, right? You don't want to be distracted. But reading, I actually do a fair amount of reading in my car, not while I'm driving.
I was going to ask,
No.
really, I need to avoid that if possible.
Yeah, but I'll if I have read something the night before, I have a young son, so there's like a lot of drop-off, pick-up, all this sort of stuff. So I'm often between places, and I'll just, I'll say, oh yeah, I got a half hour or something, and I don't want to go to a coffee shop, I don't want to be distracted, and I'll just, I finished reading Open City by Teju Cole. It's a great book. And I had 20 pages to go on it, and I'm just trying to figure out when can I finish reading this book.
In the car.
It's like
Yes.
16th Street in Santa Monica in front of somebody's house,
Right.
and I'm just sitting in the car, leaning it back.
Yeah, waiting for the Playdate pickup.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that might be a kind of an LA thing.
I think it is.
Yeah.
What about books about LA? Do you have favorites?
I feel embarrassed because people ask me because I write about LA or set things in LA, what my favorite LA authors are, and I have no answer. Crying of Lot 49. That's a kind of a weird California book. And then I have some friends who've written what I consider to be great LA novels. I loved Katie Arnoldi's book, Point Doom, Malibu book, and Matthew Spector's book, American Dream Machine, which is a Hollywood agent novel.
So you got a couple titles there. All right.
Yeah, okay. But those are very much like peer novels. I really enjoy them, but I don't feel I feel like I should have read more Joan Didion. I should have read any Raymond Chandler.
It's not too late. You can do it in the car.
I know. Yeah, I can pull over and read it.
Right.
But instead, I'm reading I'm reading Thomas Bernhard or something. There's something immature about me, not yet ready to read about the place where I live.
It's not a crime. Not yet.
It's not a crime.
All right. Thank you
God.
very much for being with us. I hope the next time we meet that you will have been on another book tour and you will behave badly and you'll talk about it.
I'll try to mess things up.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. A pleasure.